Patch 1.27 just hit the PTR and the changes are massive, essentially guaranteeing a shift in the meta. Unfortunately, clickbait has become so rife on YouTube these days that it is entirely possible that you don't believe a word I'm saying. But check this out. Let's go through each hero one by one. Starting off with the general updates. Channeled and Transformation ultimate abilities now restore ammunition after completion for some heroes. Channeled abilities affected include Junkrat's Riptire, Pharah's Barrage, Roadhog's Whole Hog, Zenyatta's Transcendence. Transformation abilities include Dragon Blade and Winston's Primal Rage. This is an amazing quality of life change, and I'm actually keeping my eye out right now for Winston buffs, given that he's kind of been, well, rendered an endangered species, let's say, since the introduction of the stun meta and Baguette in general. I do believe this is also going to introduce more of the ammo and cooldown dumping strategy before popping your ult on heroes like Winston and Zenyatta, just given that obviously it's much more efficient if you can just hit your ultimate button and yeah, immediately reload simply by pressing the Q button. So as a Zenyatta player and an ex-Winston main, these changes are really welcome. Next up, we have Ana. Now this one is ridiculous. It's awesome. Nano Boost now also instantly heals the target for 300 health, developer comments. This change should give Ana the flexibility to use her ultimate in a wider variety of situations. So as it stands right now, as it has stand in the past, using Ana's ultimate Nano Boost to save a target by reducing the damage that they take was an extremely niche play. You could kind of do it when, you know, you have an allied tank caught in something like an Earth Shatter, and he's just soaking up a ton of damage, and you can kind of throw the Nano Boost onto him and potentially save his life. Or if your Reinhardt gets pinned by the enemy Reinhardt, throwing out a Nano Boost onto your Rein would 9 times out of 10 allow you to save his life with a follow-up bio nade. This version of Nano Boost is obviously insane. People were speculating for a while now that big Ana buffs were incoming, given that, well, she's kind of been a niche pick for the most part. She saw some play for a while in things like the triple and quad tank metas while they were a thing, but beyond that, a super high skill floor made her a very difficult pick to make work in things like solo queue, especially if your team isn't the most compliant bunch. However, this change allows for some huge solo plays, and yeah, super welcome buff here. Next up, we have a Baguette with Shield Bash getting a cooldown increase from 6 to 7 seconds. Dev comments, slightly increasing the cooldown will give Baguette's opponents more opportunity to play around her Shield Bash ability. Fairly simple stuff, not much more to say about this one. I'm glad to see it. Less stuns is it can't be a bad thing. Next up, we've got Doomfist. Rocket Punch no longer impacts Symmetra's teleporter and now destroys Symmetra's sentry turrets without actually stopping his movement. So, quality of life stuff here for Doomfist. Next up, we have a small Hanzo nerf, with Hanzo's lunge cooldown being increased from 4 to 5 seconds. This is good stuff. Again, as an ex-Winston main and possibly picking up Winston again because, you know, aiming isn't exactly my strong suit. Seeing people kind of lose their mobility cooldowns a little bit and getting little nerfs here and there, that's always nice to see. Moira is also receiving an interesting change as well. Biotic Grasp. Passive energy regeneration rate increased from 2 per second to 2.4 per second. So this is obviously Moira's healing resource. And to put it into perspective, this is obviously like a 20% buff to the passive regeneration rate. I think this is really nice, especially when you're doing things like solo healing as Moira, which happens more often than you think in solo queue. At the lower ranks in competitive, you kind of get lumbered with solo healing quite a lot at those ranks. So just having the extra passive energy regeneration and not just being super burnt out of your healing beam and not being able to do much of anything and having everyone complain at you, etc. Well, I'm sure that will still happen. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, but this is a nice little buff for sure. Lucio. Next batch of huge buffs right here. Crossfade. The aura radius is now increased from 10 to 12 meters. Alright, pretty reasonable buff, but check out Sound Barrier, man. Temporary shields granted increased from 500 to 750. Now, this is insane. Sound Barrier right now is a pretty solid survival tool to survive through things like, you know, an Earth Shatter if you don't get caught in it, and things like, you know, the Graviton Surge, and etc. However, compared to a Transcendence, it didn't really stack up most of the time. Boosting the shield from 500 to an instant surge of 750 worth of temporary shield, That is a massive, massive buff. I don't know exactly what this will allow you to survive now. Obviously some experimentation is required, but just on paper, a 50% buff to an ultimate ability is crazy, and I can't help but imagine that this is going to cause huge waves in the meta. Next up, just kind of blazing through these because there are a lot of individual changes, like Jesus, I think we're around halfway through right now. Mercy, Caduceus Staff, Healing Beam reduced from 60 heals per second down to 50 heals per second. Let's read the dev comments on this one too. Mercy's previous healing output made her nearly impossible to replace in any team composition. Even after these changes, she will still be able to deliver more healing, goddammit, over the course of a match than any other support hero. This change should allow for other healers to be a more viable pick. Well, that's for sure. To be honest, I think that even with just the buffs to Lucio and Ana, we probably would have seen a little bit less Mercy, especially on things like, control maps for Lucio and tank-heavy compositions for Ana. But yeah, this definitely guarantees it. Next up on these Sombra changes, Sombra's head was apparently massive. She just had like the fattest head ever, and they've gone ahead and reduced that a bit, so there you go, Sombra mains. You've got something to, something to celebrate there. Reinhardt's barrier field. Decorative insignia no longer protrudes from the shield's surface. By smoothing out Reinhardt's barrier field, he will be able to consistently block enemy abilities and projectiles, for example Junkrat's grenades. I don't really know what that means. I've got to be completely honest, maybe this is important to you Reinhardt mains. Was damage kind of getting through the barrier because some of his hitbox model was poking through, like via the insignia or something? I'm not quite sure what exactly this means, to be completely honest. But yeah, there it is. Next up we have Widowmaker nerfs. Oh man, grappling hook. Cooldown increased from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. A 20% cooldown increase on the grappling hook. Once again, this is kind of a theme that I'm noticing, and that's why I'm kind of pointing out changes that are going to be impacting Winston. I don't know whether these changes are to kind of help Winston out and allow him to chase targets down a little bit easier, but we'll see how much this impacts things. I'm not quite sure it's going to be enough to usher him back in, but yeah. And now we have a mixed bag of changes for Zarya. Very, very interesting stuff here too. Energy. Energy drain rate reduced from 2 per second to 1.6 per second. So obviously this results in Zarya staying at high energy for longer. It's going to decay 20% slower than before. Graviton Surge, however, getting a nerf. Radius reduced from 8 to only 6 meters. That's actually pretty goddamn significant. Developer comments on this with the reduced energy drain rate. Zarya should be at higher energy on average, resulting in more overall damage and quicker ultimate charge times. Yep. We've also decreased the wide area of Graviton Surge, so players are more able to aid allies without being pulled in as well. So to be honest, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think anyone apart from Zarya's and Hanzo's are going to be too upset about the Graviton Surge nerf. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but hell, I'll be glad to see a little bit less of the combo. You all know which one I'm talking about. Is this a good change for the game overall? I'm not so sure. Reducing the Graviton Surge radius by 2 meters might not seem like a lot, but in terms of radius, that is a massive, massive difference. And honestly, teams just playing spread out right now, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to get any more than a few people locked down in a Graviton Surge, which maybe that's the way that it should be. But hey, those are just my thoughts and opinions. I'm definitely going to be scanning over these a lot more and playtesting them a bit on the PTR. What do you think of these changes? Was somebody nerfed too harshly? Are the Ana buffs meta breaking? Is she back? Let me know what you think down below. Please do subscribe for more content just like this, as well as some upcoming tips and tricks, guides that we are working on. I've been Tom from the Gamer Leap team. Have a great day.